What's up, everybody? Ryan Adams. It is time for another wonderful, amazing, spectacular episode of Ryan and Real Estate. Let's get to it. But first, before we get to it, let me just encourage you, push you on, ask you to please like this video, comment if you have any questions. I'd love to interact with you, and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at the Adams Group and Ryan Adams. Okay. Question for this episode is, why is there such low inventory of active listings, homes on the market today? Why is that? That's a question I get asked a lot, and I figure I would take a little bit of time to address what the issue would be. And really, I have about 7 or 8 points, and I want to tell you what it is. Okay, so if you haven't noticed, and we'll put up a graph here so you can see it, of the last 6 Januaries, we are dramatically lower in active listings on the market. We're in February now, but when we took this poll, lowest active listings on the market in all the country, record low as you can get. Is that Low song again? Anyway, so I want to help you understand why that is, and it may give you an opportunity to take advantage of this depending on if you're a buyer or seller. So first reason, number one, low interest rates. As you've seen, we are at record low interest rates, and the point of that, obviously we're going through a pandemic, which the Fed stepped in to kind of help us out during the middle of this pandemic, which maybe we're getting that way, I don't know, who knows? But the interest rates have been at record lows. At some point we were seeing 2.6% for a 30-year fix, which is just nuts because 5 years ago averaged 5.5%. So low interest rates. It looks like that's going to continue to be the case, because what's the definition of low? It's all relative, but definition of low, we're probably going to be in that for at least the next year to 2 years. Yes, the interest rates are rising, but will we continue to stay at these low interest rates? In a broad perspective, yes, we're gonna have low interest rates. Second reason, lack of new builds. New build construction there's not much out there, and the ones that are there, they are extremely higher price per square foot than a resale home. Part of that is the labor. We've had a hard time through the COVID pandemic to be able to get the right labor. Part of that's the building materials, and we've been catching up for a long time on new builds as it is anyway. So not having that new, the population is growing. We can't just resell the same old homes. We have to have new construction, and if we don't have new construction, it's gonna make the resale market that much hotter. Third reason is people wanted to move. There was a lot of people who were in the cities in kind of more tight spaces like condos and townhomes and things like that, which make up a smaller amount of the active listings. And they became, through the pandemic, really aware of where they lived at. If you had to office from home for a year and you're in a studio apartment or you're in a small condo, you may now go, I want a lot more square footage. So they went to places where you could do that. So part of that is we just had another increase of a buyer demand there. So that would be it, is just that people wanted to move. And in the pandemic, they kind of used it as an opportunity because they were much more aware of their surroundings. Number 4 is there's a lot, and the majority of sellers out there were not selling and are not selling currently in the pandemic. A lot of people were just happy. Part of that is maybe they didn't want to make an upgrade to their home, or they didn't want to make a transition because they didn't know what was going to happen. We've been kind of in a state of unknown for a while of what this pandemic actually is going to do. So sellers were kind of just chilling, and active listings that may have been a little bit easier to go in the market before because you're like, oh, we'll sell. We know this. We have stability. We understand it. We're willing to do it. And they weren't willing to do that, as we saw in the pandemic, which kept more homes off the market. Fifth reason was we had a lot of investors flood the market looking for opportunities to buy. And they were buying this. As we've seen recently in the news, inflation is rising, and a lot of people believe the hedge on inflation is buying real estate. So a lot of investors decided, hey, I'm gonna take my money out of the stock market and I'm gonna go invest it into real estate because the prices are so high and they're continuing to rise. And so what we saw them doing is they're bringing cash and competing with a traditional buyer who's like, getting their first mortgage. The other part is we saw an increase in the millennial generation buying. Whatever happened, maybe it was just them working from home, but we saw kind of the millennial generation not really buying into real estate for years and years, but whatever COVID did, we now have like the millennial buyer phenomenon, which is they're just out there. It's the largest generation we currently have, and it seems they have really picked up their buying home habits here. So millennial generation jumps into the market, and that was a huge part. And then the last reason was, as you probably have noticed, you live here in Houston, you live in Texas, we had an increased migration, especially in some of the states that maybe had less regulations, or you could get more square footage for your home for the dollar. And so we had, like in Texas right now in Houston, the majority of people moving here, migrating to Texas, who are getting to sell their home wherever it might be for a much higher price and getting a lower cost home here in Texas with still a great a place to live at. We all love it here. But we had, like, majority of the people moving into Texas right now, California, New York, Chicago, and they're moving in because they can get more square footage. They were more aware of where they lived at. So those are all these reasons, which there's probably a lot more, but if I had to narrow it down, it's probably all of those reasons in which has the homes that are coming in the market are getting bought up, and then there's really not many coming on. Lower interest rates, all these things make this perfect algorithm to keep us at the lowest inventory ever. What's gonna happen? Not sure, but I think we should see some more homes at the market, and it won't be quite like it's been for the last year or so. Anyway, if you're wondering why is inventory low, there's your answer. If you have any questions, comment us down below. You always can reach out anytime you want. We'd love to answer any questions you can. Have a great week. Brian in Real Estate. We'll see you next time.